Now it's recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
I got the button. It's so cool. And then my kid lost it. I had to get a new one. Here I've got copies of the stories. They might not be complete copies. I've downloaded the true story on the internet. Has anybody read it? Yes! I was wondering if anybody's going to read
your
it.
email.
Okay, but as we know, there's this movie that came out, right? The Possession, and it was based on a true story. And a lot of times we love things that are based on true stories, but not anymore. Because Hollywood just takes it and just like, oh, come on. I mean, even in the trailer.
Can we just take?
Yeah, these are yours. Right?
Well, you know, one of the Bibles is from here this time.
Let's get it.
The littering.
Okay. Okay, so anyways, if you can take these even after if you want to, okay? These are copies that I got it off the internet, okay? And followed it. Okay, there's extra copies. You can pass these back. They're different ones slightly, but basically they're all the same. All right. So, basically, okay, of course, as soon as I saw the trailer, I said, okay, it's already off. Okay? And immediately, my son and his friends, some of my students, we went and we read the true story, right? Which you basically, the true story is good enough, right? So just to go over the story briefly, you don't have to read the whole thing, okay? There was a woman who came basically over from Europe post-World War II. She settled in Oregon. She had in her sewing room this box, which was like a little wine cabinet in a high place. Her grandkids would come in and watch her sewing, and they would say, well, what's that, Grandma? And she would spit through her fingers, you know, and say, it's a Dibbuk and a Kesslin, toot, don't you ever open that box. So she wanted to be buried with the box when she passed away. Orthodox law prohibits someone to be buried with their Ferrari, if they wanted to be buried with their Ferrari, or anything. And I asked the rabbi, what's the reason for that? Why, if she wanted to be buried with some precious artifact? Nuh-uh. It's called Bal Tashchis, actually. There's a negative commandment in the Torah about wasting things. So you're not allowed to be buried with if something can be of use to somebody, we don't just throw it away. So they didn't bury it, of course, and there's this estate sale, which was actually in the movie. They had this kind of estate sale, even though the lady was still alive, right? But this person by the name of Kevin, who is a furniture refurbisher, bought it, thought it was a nice little artifact. Interesting thing, he had a little altercation with the granddaughter at the buying of this thing. You can sit down, Rafa. You don't have to.
No, that's okay.
No, I don't want you to. It's cool if it's right. I'll know to keep on the angle.
If you go too far, I tell you.
How's this? How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay, fine. Okay, so Kevin bought this box, and here comes the daughter saying, "Oh, you bought the box, right? Right? The Dibbuk box, right? He didn't know what a Dibbuk was, even though he was Jewish, right? He didn't think anything of it. She seemed kind of upset about it, whatever it was. The box was never opened. He brought it to his shop where he was going to give it to his mother for a gift. He left it in his shop. You know, he opened it up. He noticed there were some articles in there, right? Really strange stuff. This is the true story. 2 locks of hair, a weird candelabra, a stone, a stone that said Shalom on it, that looks like it was cut from a tombstone. Okay? There was some Hebrew writing in the back of the box. Okay? Not like in the movie where there's Hebrew writing all around. And me and my wife, we know how to read Hebrew. We're trying to figure out what it says, and it's just random letters. Okay? So in any case, and that box, they didn't know how to open it in the movie, but this one you can open it quite clearly. It was this little wine box. He opens it, he finds these articles in it, okay? He actually offered to give these articles that were in the box back to the family. They didn't want it. Everything that's in the box comes with the box, that's yours. So, he looked through it around. He was going to basically clean it up a little bit. He had to run some errands in town, and he gets a phone call from the worker in his shop who's freaking out. Somebody had locked the doors in, the electric doors from the inside. She could not get out. She hears some screaming downstairs in the basement. That's where the box was kept, right? And broken glass and some swearing, right? he darts back to the shop, finds her in a corner, freaking out on the floor, crying. He goes into the shop, downstairs, into the basement, right? And then he's hit with what we call the smell of cat urine. Okay, interesting smell, okay? You know, and of course the lights don't work because all of the sockets were burned out in there. All of the bulbs were broken in their sockets. But then again, he didn't find anything, and he didn't think anything was going to have the result of the box at all. All right, he happens to meet his mother. He gives the gift to his mother. He has to leave to answer a phone call for a couple of minutes, and apparently his mother has a stroke. Okay, terrible thing. She's at the hospital. He comes visit her at the hospital, and she's basically only able to communicate with putting her finger over letters. Right? That's the only way. At this point, she did recover, but at this point, she can only communicate through letters. So she points to the letters HATEGIFT. I hate gift. No. She said no gift. Right? And he says, "Mom, I gave you a gift." Like he thinks that she's out of it. "Mom, I gave you a gift." No. She's upset. She says HATEGIFT. I hate the gift. Okay, I'll get you another gift. No big deal. Right? So what does he do with it? He gives it to his. He's got some sisters. They have it for a little while. A brother. They have it for a little while. They have it for a little while. They give it back. Right? They complained about it smelling like cat urine. One person said it smelled like jasmine. Its smells were coming out of the box. He tried to sell it to some people who left it by his shop the next day, saying this has got some bad energy to it. We don't want it. And so he took it home, and then he started having these dreams. The dreams were very unusual dreams. Basically, he's walking with an acquaintance. Seems like somebody that he knows, more or less, and all of a sudden this acquaintance turns into this hideous hag and starts to beat him. Mercilessly. Seriously. And he actually wakes up having bruises on his body in the place where he got hit. Okay? Freaky. He still doesn't associate anything with the box. It's amazing how, hello! Right? Get rid of the box! Right? Wow. So he's it's whatever. But then Stephen starts to get real freaky when his brother or his sister are spending the night at his house at the same night, and they're all sitting at the breakfast table. And here comes the sister saying, "Gosh, I had this weird dream. I haven't had this dream in a while. It was a really weird dream." And then she starts describing the same dream that he had the same night. And then the brother says, "Oh my gosh, I had the same dream." They all shared the same dream. Walking with some acquaintance and then getting beaten by some hideous hag. Right? So then all of a sudden he doesn't know what to do, but I think he's associated with the box. He actually talked to a girlfriend that had the box for a while, and he asked her, "Did you happen to have a dream, like a certain dream, like Well, did it happen to be this night that because he knew what night that she had the box in her house?" And she goes, "Yeah." So he puts it out into his. He has what he call a storage unit out in his backyard. Leaves it out there, and in the middle of the night, the fire alarm from the storage unit goes off. He goes out there. Of course, he's hit by the smell of cat urine again. And then he brings the thing into his house and he starts researching this thing. Another thing started to happen also when everybody had the dream, or when this thing was around. People started seeing shadow images in their peripheral vision. Okay? Like you're all of a sudden here and all of a sudden you see a shadow like goes here or there. Right? And you look and of course there's nothing there. Right? So 2:00 in the morning, the fire alarm goes off in his storage unit. He pulls it in and he starts researching this thing over the internet. Right? Of course, he falls asleep as he's passing out. He passed out. Of course, while he sleeps, he has the dream again of getting beaten, and then he wakes up feeling breathing on his neck, and he sees this huge shadow thing lopping down the hallway, and that's when he's decided I'm selling this thing on eBay. He says, "I would burn this thing in a second, but I not know what to do with it." So he sold it on eBay for about $270. What a bargain. Like kids are saying, like, "Why didn't you buy it, Daddy?" Okay. So anyways, the subsequent buyers of that, I think, were college students who basically shared a house with 6 people in it. And they were doing, I guess, their own little personal testing, sleeping in it within the room with it. Let's just keep going down this thing. Not too extreme things. You know, you can always, you know, when you're on a negative perception pattern, you'll always start to notice things if you want to, right? So, but they did notice certain things that happening. Kids were getting sick, eye infections, a lot of those. They did notice that wherever the room, they would leave the box closed, and all of a sudden they would find it open. Now, they did have an interesting spring mechanism in the box, but you know, it was kind of a strange thing. And then they noticed certain, like, flies collecting around in certain areas. The garbage started to, like, it was hard to keep the place clean. Smells. They found a dead rat in the engine of their car. Weird stuff. Okay. But then again, once again, you can say, well, you can always, you know, people who are already on a track mind to see negativity are always going to see negativity. But anyways, they ended up selling it to the third buyer, which I believe is the same buyer who owns it to this day.
Oh, he still owns it?
Yes.
Owns it?
He still owns it. He put it away from harm's way. He put it who knows where, I don't know what, right? He had some really radical stuff happen to him. Even when the box didn't even arrive yet, he was like making fun of it, and a tree fell in his house.
I'm sorry, it's not funny.
I mean, you know, and, you know, I mean, they were like, don't mock the box. You know, that was the phrase they kept repeating to themselves. Don't mock the box. Because they're like, yeah, a tree fell in his house, you know. And he started getting a serious redness in his eyes. No matter what doctor he went to, couldn't solve the solution of the redness that was consistent in his eyes. Okay. In any case, he still has the box, and he did some super duper research on this thing because he wanted to find out what's the story with it. So, and now I was following this while he was still in the middle of the investigation. You understand? I haven't even you know. So finally, it got to the point of something very interesting. He finally tracked the original buyer down. They tried to track of course, the woman who owned the box had passed away, but they actually tracked down a friend of somebody, acquaintance, who knew the woman in Europe, who gave the whole explanation. Okay, blew the story open to a very interesting degree. Apparently, what was going on pre-World War II were something from the Victorian era way of entertainment, because, you know, I don't know if everybody had TVs, but definitely not internet or anything else, no Wi-Fi, nothing. So they would do for entertainment, they would do what's called seances. Now, it's not a joke, doing seances, and there's different forms of doing seances. I myself, my parents, when I was a kid, you know, 12, 13, did seances. One of those things. They didn't know any different. It's usher in the Torah. It's forbidden to contact the dead, and I'm going to explain why. Okay? But there is an explicit negative commandment against contacting the dead for any answers or reasons or explanations whatsoever. So, but in any case, in those days, it was like one of those things that they did for entertainment. Now, there's different ways that you can have a seance. The way that I saw my parents do it, which a lot of people did at the time, was through using, not necessarily, I mean, it's like a Ouija board. Is anybody familiar with Ouija boards? You get them at Toys R Us now, right? You can always get one at Toys R Us, right? But my parents, you know, and their group thought that was black, you know, especially since The Exorcist came out, right? and I convinced my dad, bring me. I want to go. 12 years old, going to The Exorcist. Well, I was born on Halloween, so I always had an attraction to monsters and ghosts and things like that. Any monster movie, I think, what can it be? You know, I ran out in the middle of the movie. Ran out, right? And I was willing to go back to sit, and I had my head was buried in my dad's sweater the rest of the movie. Still, her voice, I still had trouble with. Okay? But my dad told me, you know, the exact scene that you ran out, there were 20 other people that walked out exactly at the same time. It was one of those movies where a lot of people got freaked. So, in any case, I was into it, so they felt that the Ouija board was something black. So they made their own. Got a big board from Home Depot or whatever it is at that time. They got their own letters, shellacked it, made it smooth, and you take a glass, but what it is you take a glass and you have more than one person. Have you ever heard this before? Lightly touch the glass, and then you call upon the spirit, and the spirit moves the glass over the letters. You have somebody writing down the letters, and therefore you could hopefully put words together and make sense of what's being said, if anybody's being said. And of course there's one guy in the group who's moving the glass, or two guys, or whatever. My dad was the biggest skeptic in this. Okay? I'll tell you one incident. Okay? My dad was a very big skeptic, going, come on man, you guys are moving the glass, forget it man. It's bogus. So he says, and he wants to test the spirits. He goes and reaches into his pocket, he pulls out a dollar bill and he says, what are the serial numbers on this dollar bill? And they started saying the numbers, and he opens up the dollar bill and he says, ha, it's not it! Right? And then the glass continues to move and says, check your wallet. He goes into his wallet, he opens up a bill and the exact serial number. Okay? Goosebumps. We ain't sleeping tonight! Woo! Blow the chauffeur! Blow the chauffeur! Okay. In any case, so other seances were done in different areas, especially I was thinking in those areas, based on what I read here. The interesting thing is it's too freaky. Panina, that's it, man. Cutting out. Lost one! Okay. Too cold.
She's going to the wall.
I think that's what's going
Thank you.
It's something.
All right. Oh yeah, it's getting cold here. The way that it seems to be described here, that this person did the research, that the seances that they were doing in those areas was more of a different nature. That it could be that they were actually doing what's called channeling. Channeling is when the spirit would come and speak through one of them. You'd have a medium, and the spirit would speak through them. Okay. So the interesting thing was they noticed that these spirits, or I'm looking at it, I'm guessing, my take on the story is that there were more than one spirit, minimum two, right? They were started to do psychological tricks on them. Because if they were late in gathering, right, and these spirits knew what everybody was up to, so they would get mean with them because they were late in gathering. Like they would say psychological games, like one would say what the other one sinned. Like I saw her, she was at the deli, I saw her eat bacon, right? You were eating bacon on Tuesday afternoon at 10, I saw you, right? And all of a sudden the person's embarrassed, caught, right, with all these, I did not eat bacon, you ate bacon. Okay? Or something like that. Or you spoke Lashon Hora, or you stole. They would do this kind of thing, right? So they realized, okay, man. And then, apparently, according to the story, these spirits had a plan. And they wanted this seance group to help them. They were going to go ahead and wanted to come into the world in a more permanent way, in a way that they can do whatever they wanted to do in a more serious way. So, of course, the group has a counter plan. We got to stop this, obviously. I mean, you can get into the movie. This is just good enough. You must admit. Why do they have to go into this mishigas, this craziness about this possession stuff, okay? So the group develops a plan to go ahead and stop these people. And they said, to the degree that it was told by this person, something went wrong. It happened to be the night that they were doing this, and they wanted to trap or something these demons or get them out. That was the night of Kristallnacht, which is an interesting thing. The connection that they make, Kristallnacht, as you know, was the night where all of the basically the entire Jewish quarter in Germany, they went breaking all the windows in the entire Jewish quarter, right, and burning synagogues and things like that. Terrible destruction, huge thing. Interesting thing that they wanted to associate how these spirits that were associated with this box break glass. Because when Kevin, the first person who bought this box, went into a shop, the sockets were, and also the second buyer notices all of a sudden bulbs were burning out very fast in the house. Right? Real strange, right? After I read the story, just read it. all of a sudden, every time a bulb burned down in my house, I was freaking out. 2 bulbs burned down, I'm like, it's here! Right? Blow the shofar! Blow the shofar! Okay.
Is that the
It's here! Blood! Okay, so computers were burning out, electronic, obviously the thing that, okay, so that's basically the story or where it came from. Somehow this woman was able, who came from Europe, was able to trap these spirits in the box using either the form of the locks of hair. I don't know the details of how she was able to do that. We don't have anything in Kabbalistic literature, you know, how to do that. We do have other things, but it doesn't have anything to do with articles such as that. It's more like a witchcraft kind of thing. That's what I would say. But in any case, we noticed that as long as the box was closed and the grandmother had it in her house, things were contained and okay. When it was opened, obviously, these certain things had to happen. Obviously, we see the effects of these spirits, which is obviously something of a stroke, which could be have to do with electronic impulses in the head, right? It has to do with something with electricity, okay? So taking it now a step back, okay, we have 2 ideas or concepts or possibilities of understanding the box and then versus, let's say, the movie, so to speak, right? There were some, like I said, what similarities in the movie? Okay, it was bought on an estate sale, okay, it was a box, okay, that was basically it, okay?
And weird things happen.
And weird things happen, okay? Voices, I don't even think that they was in Yiddish. I was trying to follow the voices in the movie, I couldn't even follow.
The review said they were speaking Polish.
Thank you.
Poland.
There you
What
go.
was it? Polish?
Yeah, and the filmmaker actually had some Amish people get a Casey Award. Nobody wanted to obviously use the real box. So they had a replica, an identical replica made of the box by these
Amish
the
people.
Amish people.
furniture.
I know, I could have done, I was going to make an artificial box, like the one who's described here, which is more like a box. Okay?
Well, they said as soon as it was done, all the Amish people said, please take this thing away from our community. The cows were not getting milk.
Wow.
How weird. Thank you.
What cow? Something happened to the cows?
They weren't giving their milk, etc. I mean, it just sort of went with the box. And they originally talked about using the real box. But
I don't
That
even-
guy's not
I
going to
don't
give you the
even
real
know.
box.
No, he was, but because he was involved with the filmmaking.
But you can make a replica of
Right,
it.
but of the 10 people involved in the room, not one of them was willing to be responsible for the box and take it home at night, so they said, okay, we'll have to.
There you go.
But the replica began to take on the same characteristics
Yes,
as the box.
in fact, after the film was over,
Yes.
2 days later after the wrap,
Yes.
the box plus all the other set pieces were in a warehouse that burned down.
That's the best thing to do.
Oh, I really hope.
End of story. Okay. Now how do we, yeah,
But
so
that
it
was
seems
the
to be,
faux box.
hey, it's kind of weird, okay? Sorry to go ahead and tell over the story, and if you definitely read it on the internet, watch out, your computer might fry, okay? So, it happened, okay? So now the question really is let's go back here and answer some of the questions on the movie, because the movie talked about something called demon possession, okay? Just to cut to the chase right now, in terms of Judaism, Judaism doesn't hold by demon possession, okay? Possessions we do have actually in our history though, okay? There is a man by the name of Rabbi Yehuda Fataya. Rabbi Yehuda Fataya, he wrote a book, and I had the English translation, but I don't know where it went. I left it over in the other room, and they were praying in there, so I couldn't get it. But there is an English translation. This is what the man looked like at the turn of the 19th century. He was basically going from Jerusalem to Baghdad, performing exorcisms, actually. The name of this book is called Minchas Yehuda, which is like the gift of Yehuda, but the real name of the book is called Haruchot Misaprot, which means the spirits speak. What he would do, basically, he would go to these people who had this sickness, right? Apparently possessed, and he would interview these spirits. He wanted to find out what happens after you die. And basically all the stories of the different independent stories that he did, and he logged it. On this date, and this such and such, this person was in this person. And on this date, and all of his statements and all of his cases, and it basically comes down to, is basically, in Judaism, what we do have, I was told, I read a book by Gershon Winkler. He wrote it, I think, in the 60s and 70s called Dibbuk. And he basically put it in story form, many stories of dibbuks, of possessions in Judaism. He did say that the world these days, since we don't have anybody who can cure, who can really take care of it, so God doesn't bring such an incidence to the world. Okay? In other words, usually we have a concept that God always sends the healing, the refuah, the remedy, before he sends the disease. In other words, if there's no cure, he does not send the disease. This is usually a concept that we have in Judaism. So if there's nobody here who can deal with exorcisms in our generation, therefore God does not allow such things to exist. He doesn't allow possessions. Now, just to take a step back. So if we don't believe that demons are possessing Jews, then what is possessing Jews? Okay? If you hold by such a thing. So the idea here is this. There's such a thing called nefesh artili, which is called a naked spirit. What is a naked spirit? So basically what happens is a person, a soul, every soul that comes into this world comes, before they go into the body, have what's called a lavush, or a garment about them. This garment becomes enhanced or deteriorates based on the person's deeds. If the person does Torah, he learns Torah, and he does mitzvot, right? He performs the commandments, so then this lavush, this garment, is strengthened. If, however, the person does serious sins, serious transgressions, his garment, his soul garment, is deteriorated and evaporates. Well, basically, while the person's alive, you'd never tell the difference. But after the person dies, if they have that garment is their protection. They are basically impervious to whatever forces of negativity that might be out there. In other words, if they don't have it, they're exposed. What I like to look at is they're exposed to their own negativity. We have in our tradition that if a person does a mitzvah, if he does a commandment, he's created an advocate. In other words, he creates a positive angel that goes before God and basically is on his defense. If a person does a transgression or a sin, he creates a prosecutor. That prosecutor goes before God and also prosecutes, and he wants justice. So basically, based on a person's deeds, if his lavush, if his garment is deteriorated, therefore he's exposed to his own negative actions that he's done in his lifetime. Okay? So what happens is, this person who's done these actions and doesn't have his garment is called a naked spirit, because he's exposed. Basically, this person who has this naked spirit doesn't even merit to go to what we call Gehenna. Okay? Gehenna, you got to be worthy of going to Gehenna. You know what Gehenna is? Gehenna is not hell. We don't have a concept of hell in Judaism. Okay? Gehenna, basically, we'll look at it basically as it's the dishwasher. Okay?
Your dishwasher.
Okay? It's a place where souls it's a process that souls go through to get cleansed. Whatever dirt that they might have contracted on their souls, like stains on a garment, it has to get purged in order for that soul to be able to receive the divine light in the right way. Okay? So, if the person, going to Gehenna and getting a wash, right? We'll look at it a while. There's lots more to talk about in terms of what Gehenna is, but suffice it for now. Not every soul merits to go to such a place. It's a great thing if you get to go to such a place, right? The soul that does so many transgressions or certain real bad ones, he doesn't even get to go there. He wants to go, but the souls are in Gehenna are going, he can't come here, right? What he did this and this and this and this and this, he can't come. So this soul is what we call a certain stage called kafakela. They call it the slingshot. It's kind of basically where he's in a limbo. He can't go here and he can't go there. He doesn't get reincarnated, and he doesn't move to Gehenna to get to his place. He's in limbo. And since he's in limbo, he suffers or he meets the effects of his own negativity. His own prosecuting angels that he's created in his lifetime through his bad deeds, he meets. And they torment him. Okay? So, the only way to get out of such torment is to invade a body. So it's wandering in the world and has no rest unless it goes and it is able to invade a body. Okay? How does it invade a body? Okay? So there was one case that happened actually pre-World War II by the Havetz Chaim, who was the leading generation Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, who was visited by a girl, apparently, some strange incident that happened in the middle of the night, that the horse was going freaking out. The father goes down into the barn, or wherever the stable, where the horse was, and it was running back and forth, and the girl everybody woke up in the house, and the horse runs into a rock, into a wall, smashes it, and dies. Right? Interesting incident. The girl just innocently goes, sees the water, she's thirsty, middle of the night, takes a drink without a blessing, and boom. The spirit who was in the horse now goes into her. The Havetz Chaim took one look at the girl's face, and he says, okay, I'm going to send you my main student to go ahead and deal with this girl. So he sent Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, who basically was able to go ahead and perform an exorcism. Okay? To go ahead and deal with the spirit. In other words, bottom line, there's no demons that invade the Jewish person. It's these souls that need a correction. They need a rectification. Usually what's done is you have to get the name. I find through all of his logs, you have to get the name. Once you get the name, so then you can fix the situation. And they usually fix the situation with saying certain names of God, reading certain passages in the esoteric text, blowing the shofar, right? Is a big one. But actually, there was a case that happened not too long ago, before I left, actually just when I left, 2001. There was a woman in Israel who was invaded by her late husband. Okay? So they got a rabbi, Rabbi Basri, who was the big Kabbalist at the time. He's still around. What?
So they can come back and home.
Yes, they can. Well, this one was a real nice guy, okay? It was questionable. I have the disc. I have the tape. I saw the video. They recorded it. This rabbi had his whole yeshiva together, interviewed the woman who's possessed right there. The voice was definitely different. It was one of them exorcism style voices, right? Right?
Did you sleep after you watched it?
It was kind of strange because my father-in-law, who's also a master Kabbalist, he saw it and he says, it's kind of strange because it doesn't have the real symptoms of a possession. According to what they bring down, the symptoms of a possession is they're lying basically lifeless, they don't move, their mouth is open, and another voice is coming out. Not this lady was like, she's standing up, she's adjusting her hat, smoking a cigarette, drinking a beer, I don't know, not that, but it's a little extreme. But she seemed to be like she was like with it in a way that didn't seem like it had the symptoms of a real exorcism. But Rabbi Basri is a real deal. He's a real rabbi, he's a real heavy rabbi. I don't think he would stage such a thing, but it's left to the viewer, okay? So, in any case, so that was a recent case. There have been recent cases, strange as they may seem, of these possessions, okay? There was another case that I heard about while I was in yeshiva in 1993. I was in yeshiva in Torah Or. And there was the big rabbi, one of the big rabbis in the yeshiva, his name is Rabbi Altusky. An Ashkenaz rabbi. He happened to be in the States. What happened is in New York, there was this person, there was this case of possession. And the people, the big rabbis who came in, like they think they're gonna we're gonna do this, right? And as soon as he came in, this spirit that was in this person, this boy or girl or man or woman, I don't know who it was, basically started calling each one of their sins. Says, you can't do it because you took bribery. You can't do it because you stole. And you can't do it because you speak Lashon Hara. Too much Lashon Hara, right? Or whatever, man. He just nailed all three of them. You're all not on the level because you sin in certain areas. So they're going, okay. Who can do it then? You got to talk to this rabbi in Tveria. The Spirit says that. There's a certain rabbi in Tveria. You got to go talk to him. They go to the rabbi in Tveria, and the rabbi says, "Oh, Rabbi Altuski's in the States. You got to call him." Okay. So Rabbi Altuski's who's this Ashkenaz rabbi. You'd never think he learns Talmud all day. He's a mild mannered. Okay, he studies. They called him in to go do it. Now I don't know what happened, except for when he came back. Okay, to the yeshiva, and the yeshiva boys knew all about this because this stuff travels around the community. So they wanted to go. The rabbi knew what happened, right? You know, and he didn't want to tell them anything. But he said definitely it was a dibbuk. Dibbuk means literally clinging, attached. A soul becomes attached to a person. He says he didn't want to tell anything else, but there was definitely a dibbuk. Okay? Okay? So as much as I do want to say, and I'd like to say that it's not happening anymore in these days because we don't have anybody to cure it, right? On the other hand, you see that there are actually seems to be cases. The last point in this area is that my father-in-law, Alav Shalom, he, because I had this I talk a lot with him in this area, especially after we saw the Exorcism of Emily Rose. There was a movie, I don't know how long ago. It was actually also based on a true story about a girl who claimed that she was possessed, not a Jewish girl, and of course the psychiatrist put her on meds, and then the priest thought it was an exorcism. The priest ordered her to be taken off, he told her to get off the meds, right? And then she died. They brought the priest to court because what are you doing? She has is this psychiatric